Hello, my name is Melissa Evans. I'm the managing editor of the Long Beach Post, and welcome to our daily live chat here on Facebook and Twitter. We've been doing these chats now for about 6 weeks, where we bring in different experts and a lot of people from the city, department heads, police, and fire, just to talk about primarily the coronavirus pandemic and how different industries are coping, how the city's grappling with this health crisis. Today I'm happy that we have today Barry Vince, who is the founder of Two Roads Professional Resources. And so Barry runs a staffing agency that essentially helps companies find the right personnel. And he's been doing, he did a webinar this week, kind of helping people navigate how to do what we're doing right now, which is a Zoom call but in a job interview context. So Barry, why don't you just first tell us about your company and what you do?
Sure. Well, thanks, Melissa, for having me on. I appreciate it. So I started back in the days of McDonnell Douglas. You Long Beach folks would know that. Back in the recruiting and the building of the C-17 aircraft with McDonnell Douglas, and we ventured off and formed Two Roads 24 years ago. And we're a technical staffing company, work with aerospace suppliers and defense contractors around the country. And we have a staff of recruiters here. Our office is in Huntington Beach, and we work across the country providing all kinds of different people employment opportunities. In my spare time, I also work with a lot of companies on their strategies and culture on how to onboard people, retain people, interview people, and all those types of things. So that's what we've been covering lately, probably more so than the actual recruiting side.
Okay. So how is what you do changed with the health pandemic and with the inability to meet in person?
Sure. Well, it's changed a lot. Basically, companies have moved to a virtual interview platform where they're actually making hiring decisions all, via, emails and then webcams and conversations and panel interviews and presentations and so forth. So it's all gone electronic, like I guess we all have lately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So even doing something like this, I mean, even doing interviews like this, it's awkward. And I want to talk about some of the nitty gritty stuff because we've got like a lot of, this is graduation season. So we've got a lot of new graduates heading into we all feel very bad for the class of 2020 because they're walking into not only this virtual world, but also a lot of economic uncertainty. So even as I'm sitting here talking with you, the eye contact situation is weird with doing Zoom. So if you could just talk about, like, if you do manage to get a job interview and you schedule maybe a Zoom meeting, how do you actually manage the interaction with the person that you're talking with?
Yeah. Well, number one on the eye contact, which it is difficult because I'm working on a split screen right now. So if I look at Melissa, I'm looking over here, or if I'm looking at the camera up, I'm looking up there. So it does get a little bit challenging. But I guess really what it comes down to, my biggest tip on virtual interviews and interviewing in general is preparation. That begins with your camera angles, your background, whatever you might have going on, eliminating distractions and so forth. And it's all in the preparation. I mean, I would practice with friends on Zoom, do Facebook, FaceTimes, whatever it might be. Get used to being in front of a camera because it is difficult, and it brings new challenges, and it also brings a lot of opportunities before an interview, particularly because you can have cheat sheets and you can have all kinds of different information, right off camera that people can't see, but you can always refer to make sure you cover, things you want to in an interview. So
there's advantages and disadvantages, like everything.
Yeah.
So should you actually look at the camera then, like I'm doing now, or should you look at the person that you're talking to?
I think you should look at the person you're talking to, especially in an interview, because you always want to establish that one-on-one eyeball to eyeball contact. That's so important in a job interview. We tend to get a little bit casual with Zoom because I think, myself, really my introduction to Zoom was, fun phone calls and, calls, happy hours, meetings, family environment, connecting with people because we haven't been able to see people in person. So, that's a little bit of a trap, because I think the virtual calls have been casual, but nowadays that companies don't really have another option, and we are just doing virtual interviews to actually make hiring decisions and career decisions for people. They need to be taken seriously and prepared for.
Right. So what are some of the things, and I've been doing a lot of Zoom calls with my family, with, friends and that sort of thing. I'm amazed at these people that show up to a Zoom call in their bathrobe. I mean, it
Yeah,
is not a job interview, granted. It's just
yeah.
a friendly interaction, but God, run a comb through your hair. You know what I mean? Like, would you show up that way at a coffee shop if we were meeting? What are some of the things you should do in terms of your appearance?
Sure. I would dress like I was going to go to the job interview. An interview situation. That's your only opportunity with some companies to make your impression and your portray what you are as a person. So if it's a business casual environment with the company, I would wear a collared shirt and slacks and so forth. If it's a
So you
bank,
should wear pants.
I would always wear pants, because you never know, you could get caught off angle, or you could sneeze and get up, or something could happen. I know we've seen some faux pas lately on the news, so yeah, I would definitely wear pants and instead of shorts or whatever else you might have going on there. Yeah,
I never
but
understood why we suddenly have this urge to not wear pants. Is that new? Is that just coming out because of the pandemic? Like what anyway, you don't have to answer that.
I don't know. I mean, I think that's an individual preference situation myself, but yeah, no, on the dress side. But I mean, I would take it seriously, and if it's a banking job, or you know some high tech jobs, I would wear a coat and tie. Dress to impress. Take it seriously, just like you would walk into an interview or a coffee shop or whatever it might be. Pretend like you're in there with somebody else.
What about your background? Because I know I read this whole story about when you do these Zoom calls, you're basically inviting people into your home.
Yes.
So the things that you see, so people, if I've got my cats jumping on me, people are going to know, are they going to think I'm a cat lady? You know what I mean? Like what are some of the things you should think about in terms of your home environment?
Sure. Well, in your preparation for an interview, I would eliminate all distractions. I would eliminate anything behind me, like, say, a window or an open door where people might be walking by. If you have kids or animals, definitely separate yourself from them with a closed door, or different house or different place, whatever it might be. If you're on a phone call, if you're actually on your cell phone, number one, I would always go with the webcam if you can. If you can't, and you're using your mobile phone, make sure you're in a good connectivity area. Make sure you've got a good background with no distractions. Make sure you're not looking at something funky that is going to take your eye contact off. Eliminate all noises. Make sure there's not like a lawnmower in the background, or whatever it is, and really prepare yourself like you're in a conference room or a meeting room. Just you one on one with the people that are on your call. I mean, that's so important. Background appearance, yeah, be careful with that. If you're in your house, be careful with any political things you might have behind you, or religious things or anything like that. Definitely keep it family environment, or whatever type of image you want to portray to the person who could potentially be hiring you. Yeah, and also, one quick thing on the virtual backgrounds, which are really cool.
Oh yeah.
You are in the world and they look awesome. If you're a person that speaks with their hands and makes gestures and so forth, be careful with those, because they leave little funny trails. And depending on what kind of interview you're in, if it's an artsy interview or something like that, that might be cool. But if it's a technical or a serious banking job or a finance job or whatever it might be, more conservative type of employment opportunity, you definitely want to be conservative with your background.
Yeah, I don't like those because you're right. It's very almost nauseating sometimes the way people move, and
Yeah.
then it leaves like a trail.
Well, and you want to be neutral. I know everybody wants to be, get their message across and their background. Hey, they're cool and they're surfers, whatever it might be. But it's probably not the right place for a job interview. If you're using it on your Zoom calls and want to do funny things and stuff like that, go for it. I think it's awesome. I mean, some of them are gosh darn funny. So, I would just keep it out of the workplace stuff.
What about, like, are there certain things that might bias an employer? when they're interviewing you, like having kids, for example? I'm thinking for women or
Mhm.
even men, or like you mentioned political signs or religious things. I mean, I mentioned my cats.
Sure. Yeah.
Are there certain things that might turn an employer off?
Well, again, I mean, I think in an interview, you want to remain completely neutral on all those fronts. Very careful because you don't want to go down the wrong path. Obviously, if the interviewer, asks you a question and says, "Hey, I like the Boston Red Sox" or something like that, and you're a Boston Red Sox fan, then go for it. Talk about the
Mhm.
Boston Red Sox, but certainly don't come out and say you're a Yankee fan if you know this guy's a Boston Red Sox fan. You just got to be careful with that stuff. Same thing with politics, religion, race. I mean, all that stuff. You just got to be careful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think you mentioned this. Someone commented on our Facebook post about updating your LinkedIn profile. Are
Mhm.
there what other things besides just your presentation on a Zoom call can you do to improve your chances in this tough economic environment?
Sure, absolutely. Well, before the interview takes place, I would prepare yourself a checklist, and actually we can provide one if you guys
Okay.
want to post it afterwards. Um, Part of that goes with your LinkedIn profile, which is really the professional way to get a job these days. That's your selling point. So make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date with a good picture, professional picture on there. Make sure your resume matches your LinkedIn profile, so they're sort of coordinated there. Clean up your social media.
Mm,
Always got to do that because employers these days don't have a chance to get to know you as much through multiple interviews and those types of things like they might normally. So they're going to be checking you out. They're going to be checking out all your social media stuff, your Instagram and Facebook. So if there are images or quotes or anything on there, I would definitely prepare those to be seen by your prospective employer. So clean them up accordingly. And then I would have a checklist, as far as, make sure your resume is ready, make sure your questions are ready. I mean, all those types of things. I mean, it's real important before you get on the call.
it- it- and I always hesitate to criticize the younger generation because I think we were all in that position at one point when we were brand new and we didn't really know very much about the professional workplace.
Mhm.
But just writing, we were just talking beforehand about uh, just knowing how to write an email,
Mhm.
a professional email. Do you guys help people with that, or do you see problems with that, or are you dealing more with mid career type people?
Sure. I mean, we deal mostly with mid and higher level career people, but I do see that all the time. It's amazing the misspellings on resumes or on their LinkedIn profiles or using, maybe slangish terms type of, ways to describe your background. I mean, you got to be careful, be conservative on those types of things. I will tell you though, the youth and the graduates now definitely have a big advantage over the experienced old guys like me on, because they're used to today's technology where I've had to adapt to video calls and so forth where most younger people have grown up through that, whether it be Instagram or Snapchat or Facebook, FaceTime, all those different sources where old guys like me have had to adapt a little bit.
And here I go. I just said I didn't want to complain about the younger generation, but I'm going to.
Yeah.
Steve, he's in his late 50s and I'm in my mid 40s. And so we talk sometimes at like career days to journalism students, and I teach a class. And in fact, I just gave my last class on Wednesday, and I was kind of giving my students sort of a layout of the job picture, which for journalism is never good.
Right.
Um, but we always laugh because here we are professionals who hire.
Mm-hmm.
I'm somebody who hires interns
Sure.
and and I'm offering myself to you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always stunned at how few students take advantage of that.
Right.
Like go up and if someone's offering you help,
Yes.
go get their number.
100%. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that networking I don't think has changed,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, it's still important to kind of know people
Oh, sure. Yeah, like a lot of progressive companies will go towards a mentorship program or a mentee program and so forth. And really, it's just, begins on the internship level where, you're in college and you get an internship for a program and you could take that all the way up. And then really, you're just going to turn around and pass it back on to the younger generation when you hit those stages like you are now. I mean, that's one of the cool things about helping people out. It's
Yeah.
one part of the jobs.
Yeah. Well, so what would you recommend for maybe a person in their early 20s who's maybe a recent grad or somebody with limited professional experience? What would be your advice in a general sense, not knowing what industry or even industry specific for what you deal with? What would be your advice for those people entering the job market right now?
Sure. Well, number one, I would start on LinkedIn. I would build yourself a profile. If you don't have professional experience, take your college experience. Put some of your projects. Make it look like you were sort of on the job while you're in college. List those projects because recruiters or HR people or hiring managers will be looking at, and they have similar interests. And so you're looking for some type of connection to the people that are hiring you or prospectively hiring you. Definitely the social media side, clean that up, and then I would be aggressive. I would be aggressive. I would network with people as much as humanly possible. I would find companies besides just applying on, maybe deal with, potential like college recruiters and outplacement sources that way. And then, yeah, like I said, I mean, just be aggressive, be patient. It's going to be hard. Let's just face it. I mean, depending on what type of field you're in, you may be in for a rocky road for the next year, and you might need to take some positions that aren't exactly in your field for a while to gain some experience. But maybe when you're doing that, you're gonna have to compromise. It might not be your dream job, but maybe there's some portions of that job that do add to your experience level that will help you get your dream job.
And actually, we're one of our reporters here, Stephanie, is working on a story which I'm excited about, where she's going to be talking to graduates who graduated into the Great Recession
Yeah.
and asking their advice, like what they did for those couple years when there were,
Sure.
we were in dire straits. So, I mean, it's a tough time, but this isn't, a lot of people make it too.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I think we'll all make it. You just like I say, you just got to stay positive, be patient, and hang in there for a while. It's going to be rocky roads, and I'm really interested in reading that article.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see what they ended up doing.
Right. I mean, I would imagine that some probably had to live with their parents for longer than they hoped.
Sure.
um,
Sure. Well, I mean, we're coming out of an unprecedented time. The college graduate, before this happened, had multiple opportunities. I mean,
right.
jobs, galore. I mean, we've never had a stronger job outlook, in our country's history. I don't think, say than the past 5 years. And so
Mm-hmm.
those people have had great opportunities, and they've also had, probably some luxury and comfort in knowing they can spend money and get apartments and cars and so forth and be pretty aggressive because they knew they were going to have employment. This graduate class is going to have a different challenge, and yeah, I'd say be as conservative as possible. Batten down those hatches. Keep your money handy, and just keep on plugging along.
You also mentioned something interesting before we went live about from the staffing part side, from the business side, that there's a lot, there's very generous unemployment being offered right now. So
Correct.
the state benefits and then the federal, another $600, I think, on top of that. So you
Right.
were mentioning if you earned any less than about 40,000 a year,
Right.
you're now getting unemployment.
Sure.
You're actually losing money by taking it. So companies, you said, are having a hard time finding those lower wage positions.
Absolutely. It's a completely unique situation for, say a 3-month period where, yeah, I mean, if you've been furloughed and laid off, the money is pretty good right now.
Right.
Like,
Especially in states with low, like Alabama or, where
oh,
the cost of
yeah.
living is a lot less.
Heck yeah, and if you had the opportunity to enjoy yourself outside, I mean, I guess it'd be pretty awesome. I mean, unfortunately, we're all cooped up a little bit, but that has created a unique problem for, say, your Amazons right now, and your companies that are hiring 100,000 people. I mean, some companies are hiring a lot of people right now, and
Hmm.
they can't find them because of that situation. And I think there's some recent legislature coming through in the last couple of days that might change that situation. But as of today, it's a bit of a challenge. Yeah.
Would you say you're in order to get unemployment, obviously you have to have usually paid into
Right.
unemployment.
Right.
So if you're somebody who's maybe in your late 20s, early 30s, who's been laid off, maybe you're in the service industry and you have an opportunity to work, but you choose instead to just collect unemployment for a bit, would you recommend, should you get yourself back into the workforce, would an employer kind of look down upon a gap in employment?
Well, again, we're looking at a unique situation, and in a very temporary situation, assuming we're looking at 3 months or
Hmm.
somewhat close to that in time. I mean, obviously, if it drags on years, that's going to be a different situation. Um, but no, I mean, I don't think it'll reflect poorly upon you with the prospective employee, but I also think it's an opportunity to impress the employer by going out there and showing the initiative. Hey, instead of taking the money, I mean that is deserved and so forth. No, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to work because if I were in that situation, I would go out and work because we don't know what we're looking at when this is over. When we get to the third quarter, fourth quarter this year, jobs will be depleted and they're going to be hard to get, and that money is going to run out, and we're not going to be, earning, all that money with the government. Mad scramble for jobs. So imagine everybody comes off the stimulus package, and then and it's I first say, and okay, now everybody's got to go to work at the time. I think I would probably go to work, a month ahead of time
Right.
and get a job and start working your way up. Because there are certain industries will be hiring that are going to be growing fast. Obviously, a lot of industries to be hurting, but there are opportunities out there right now. Like I used Amazon as an example. I mean, I have a lot of friends that moved out of the industry, started working at Amazon, and within a month or two went from 15 to $25 an hour. I mean, there's opportunity there, and like I say, maybe it's not your, but money's money, and we all have to earn a living. So I would position myself ahead of the mad pack.
Would be God, we're already at almost at 1:30.
Yeah,
So what would be, I know you have a teenage son, right?
yes, I do.
About 15 or so?
He's 13,
Okay,
going on
13.
13, but yeah.
So a little young, but he doesn't have to worry about the job market yet. But if you were to tell your son like what industry you should go into, knowing what you know about where we are in this economy, say your son was a little older, maybe 18, what would you advise? What are the good industries, I guess? What would be, where are the jobs going to be in 3 to 5 years?
Well, in a field that I'm very close to, I mean, science and math are, you cannot go wrong. I mean, you're set up there for the next 15 years or so. College graduates and through, I mean, today in today's climate are still getting multiple opportunities. I mean, you cannot go wrong with science and math related type industries. No doubt about that. Other industries, I mean, I think the finance industry. I mean, obviously, like on the computer software, it is a good field. Yeah, I mean, I would stick to the technical sides. I think the rest is a little questionable. I mean, banking, finance is always going to be there. Legal is always going to be there. Medical is always going to be there. I mean, you can't go wrong if that's in your interest. I think the hospitality industry, anything to do related with travel, probably might not be. I mean, I think that's going to be pretty competitive for a long time.
Don't go into journalism. I'm
Well, we
just
got
kidding.
great journalists out there.
Please go into journalism if you are a dedicated journalist. But it's definitely, I tell my students, unless you're really committed to doing it, it's, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, any other thoughts, advice for people who are either mid career or younger?
I mean, just stay positive, stay confident. The jobs will be there. The jobs are there now. I think you're just going to have to be flexible on your dreams for a little while, but you know,
Yeah.
it'll be okay. I mean, it wasn't too many months ago that we had the lowest unemployment in our in history, and I think it'll be a slow ramp up in some industries, but everything will be all right.
Ian, you were actually, we were talking earlier about some of the jobs. We've got the census coming up. So they need
Sure,
census takers, and also the governor announced last week they're looking for thousands of new contact tracers as part.
sure.
And you said you do some work in that area?
Yeah, we're coordinating with some testing centers and then some some companies in that field, and yeah, there's hundreds of jobs, if not thousands in Southern California for people to do the safe job. But yeah, they're doing the testing, and that's just good, temporary positions at least to you know put a band-aid on things for a little while. Mhm.
Just bide your time until things get a little bit better.
Yeah, I think we're all going to have to do that for a while. I mean, it's just a new frontier. I mean, I don't think anybody really can predict what's going to happen, in most industries. It's just we're just going to have to hang in there, keep the positive outlook, and keep rolling.
Yeah. I mean, even like government jobs, which used to be kind of
Sure.
the safe route. I don't know that even a government job would be foolproof right now. There's governments that are going to have to do some cutting, but
Yeah, I mean, but I would think that there would be industries, that we can't even imagine that are going to pop up out of this. I mean, say the virtual industry, right? Take your companies like Zoom and WebEx and GoTo meetings and so forth. I mean, those companies are hot right now. I mean,
right.
they can't hire enough developers and so forth. So that's going to be going on. I also think like somewhat maybe in the banking and the mortgage industry, because after the dust settles and everybody has to sort of get back on track financially. I mean, I know there's a lot of people in the Small Business Association that are getting jobs within there. I mean, they're hiring a lot of people. I mean, keeping up with all the effects of what have happened here. There'll be
Mhm.
new industries and support industries that are going to be popping up every day. So, again, that's just staying active. I would read. I would spend some time every single day reading on emerging industries that are going to be popping up, looking at companies saying, hey, how can my skills pertain to those? Because there will be definitely, like LinkedIn, Twitter, get on industry sites. Don't just read the gossip stuff and the doom and gloom stuff or the sports stuff or whatever it might be that we all sort of like reading. But look at the industrial stuff. Look at all that. I mean, because there's new companies popping up, new companies getting awards for contracts from governments or whatever it might be, and just follow the trail of money. That's something we're going to be covering. Actually, our company Two Roads has a happy hour on every Thursday at 2 p.m. Pacific, which we can get the details out on the slides afterwards or something. But that's something that we're going to be covering as well. Different industries that are hiring today, trends that are going to be happening and so forth, because you have to get yourself in tune with the trends and where things are going. Otherwise, you're going to get left behind.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I always tell my students, if you're good and talented and your willingness, I think, is probably the number one quality, just willingness to learn, there's definitely a place for you in any industry, no matter how tough it is. So
There is a place, but you also have to position yourself to be in that place,
right.
because, you know, being in our house alone and watching TV or something like that's not going to really help you find a job.
No.
You need to get out there and you need to network and, like you talked about writing, write emails to people, like if you notice maybe one of your fellow journalists in the field that you're in that writes an article about something that's cool, write them a note saying, hey, I really enjoyed that article. That was really cool. I was really interested in, wow, how you landed on that moon that day or whatever it might be. You know, connect. You have to connect. I know a lot of us are introverts, and being on camera and blowing up your profile on the internet is difficult and doesn't come, naturally. But you're going to have to network and dig, because it's, if people don't see you, they don't see you.
I'm bad at that, but I think a lot of people are.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
anyway, well, thank you for joining us, Barry. So Barry Vince from Two Roads Professional Resources, and we'll get up some information about the happy hours and how maybe people can get some resources from you and your company going forward. But I appreciate you joining us, and we'll talk tomorrow. I think tomorrow we're going to do our live chat will be a discussion with some of the staff people here about covering this coronavirus. One of our guests fell through tomorrow, so we're going to do kind of a staff thing here tomorrow. So thank you for
Sure.
watching.
I'm going to bring a whole bunch of questions.
Okay, good.
Thanks.
Thank you.